The battle strategy of God's rival is marked by a subtle and deceitful intrusion. The ancient serpent never engages God or his church in battle with reckless abandon, nor does he contemplate the sudden and immediate destruction of God's institutions. Instead, he devises counterfeits to bring about their gradual decline. By appealing to man's pride, the deceiver uses human devices to create cunning replicas of the institutions which God has ordained. These replicas are so deceitfully similar to God's original institutions that the distinctions of their forged likenesses are only revealed when carefully contrasted with the plain text of the Scriptures. First, the enemy introduces his forgery, asking only that it be tolerated alongside the institution ordained by God. In time, the enemy moves to have his counterfeit regarded as equal to that of God's. When this has been accomplished, the third stage is to have the counterfeit honored above God's. The fourth and final stage is to cast down with contempt God's original institution, and for the counterfeit to be given the entire ground. As it relates to the divine institution of the Sabbath, modern Christianity is well into the fourth stage of this strategic battle. The festival of Sunday is more ancient than Christianity. Its origin has been forgotten to the detriment of God's people, as has the origin of God's Sabbath day, even though the Creator in His omniscience gives us within His commandment a clear warning and instruction to remember. It is the only one of God's eternal commandments that begins with the word remember. For God knew in the last days we would be inclined to forget His Sabbath day through the craftiness of His enemy. As such, the people of God have unwittingly cast to the ground God's holy day, which was created, blessed, and sanctified by Him from the beginning of creation. Consequently, the enemy has robbed from God's children the blessings and benefits that flow from a genuine regard for God's true Sabbath day. Satan has committed this robbery through subterfuge and counterfeit. That is, Satan has appealed to the pride and the arrogance of man to substitute a different day which has neither been blessed nor sanctified by God as the day in which to place His worship. For Satan is knowledgeable of God's truth, as it is recorded in the Scriptures when Jesus spoke these words, quote, "In vain they do worship me, teaching for doctrines the commandments of men. And ye reject the commandment of God, that ye may keep your own tradition." End quote. We also learn from the Scriptures that even as the apostles were still living witnesses upon the earth to the testimony of Jesus Christ, great apostasy was beginning to infiltrate God's church, and even then many were falling away. And we are told by the Scriptures that there would soon arise from the very midst of the apostolic church those who would speak perverse things against God's truth. A cursory look at secular history shows that Sunday, or the weekly festival of the sun, predates Christianity and was appointed sacred by the heathen world during the remote days of antiquity. This day was adorned by those who had forgotten their Creator with the name of their supreme God, the sun. Because the sacredness of Sunday did not originate from any divine command recorded within the Scriptures, we are left to consult the murky waters of ecclesiastical history to gain an understanding of how the recognition of this heathen festival crept into God's church, eventually replacing the only day that was sanctified by God. However, in carefully doing so, we find that the historical records of the church, as they pertain to Sunday sacredness, are riddled with forgeries. The most destructive forgeries of ecclesiastical history involve Christianity's attempt, by use of writings of early church fathers, to create a nexus or connection between Sunday as the new Christian Sabbath and the teachings and traditions of the apostles from where its sacredness is claimed to have originated. However, no recorded writings of the apostles, or even of those who lived with or immediately after them until AD 140, ever alluded to the establishment of Sunday as the new Christian Sabbath, nor did their writings ever refer to Sunday with any title of sacredness. In AD 96, the Apostle John was given a prophetic vision from God while he was exiled and imprisoned on the Greek island of Patmos. In his writing describing his revelation, John begins by saying, quote, "I was in the Spirit on the Lord's day," end quote. This was 98 years before any church father ever attributed John's use of the term Lord's Day to Sunday or to the first day of the week, or referred to it in any way as a new Christian Sabbath. Then, after returning from his exile on the island of Patmos in AD 97, John wrote his gospel in which he refers twice to Sunday by the ordinary term first day. It is most remarkable that John, in each of his two references to the day that many claim was already instituted by the apostles as the new Christian Sabbath, never referred to it by any title of sacredness or by any other name than that which was originally ascribed to it by God at the beginning of creation, which was the first day. If the ancient Sabbath of creation had been set aside and a new Sabbath institution put in its place, and if this fact was commonly familiar during the apostolic age, it certainly follows that John would have referred to this new Sabbath institution with at least some sacredness in his gospel, but he did not. And such is also the case time and again within the pages of ecclesiastical history. For the history of the Church as it relates to Sunday sacredness is riddled with falsehoods and forgeries in a desperate attempt to establish a much-needed connection to the apostles. Authentic church history reveals that no title of sacredness was ever given to Sunday until AD 140 by the writings of Justin Martyr, if these writings are also to be deemed authentic, and that no ecclesiastical writer prior to AD 194, Clement of Alexandria that is, ever referred to Sunday as the Lord's Day. And it was several years after that, in AD 196, that church history records the first attempt by the Bishop of Rome to rule the Christian Church by using an edict related to Sunday sacredness. That is, Victor, Bishop of Rome, in AD 196, attempted to compel all Christian churches by way of church edict to observe the Passover on Sunday, as was the practice by the churches of the Western Roman Empire, rather than observing the Passover on whatever day the 14th day of the first month fell upon, as was the practice by the churches of the Eastern Roman Empire. This would be the seed by which the actual day of the Passover would give way to Sunday by order of the Council of Nice in AD 325, out of a fierce determination by the Roman Church to have nothing in common with the Jews. For the council stated this rationale for the legislation, quote, "Let us have nothing in common with the most hostile rabble of the Jews," end quote. In that day and age, a Christian who was found following any custom or practice ascribed to the Jews would be labeled a Judaizer, or someone who sympathized with the Jews, who were regarded and despised as the ones responsible for the death of Jesus Christ. In a brief period after the Council of Nice, by the laws of Theodosius, capital punishment was inflicted upon those who ignored this measure of Sunday sacredness ordered by the council. Again, since scriptural support cannot be cited in favor of the apostolic change of the Sabbath from the seventh day to the first, we must resort to ecclesiastical history as our only source. Given the true context, it is evident that John's use of the term Lord's Day in his revelation was a distinct reference to a day which the Lord had sanctified as his own. This is and can only be true for the seventh day of creation. And if we are to only use the Holy Scriptures as our source, this cannot in any respect be true for Sunday, the first day of the week. In no way by the advancement of this truth do I mean to suggest that the glorious resurrection of our Lord, which occurred on the first day of the week, is not to be celebrated and looked upon with great reverence and joy. However, it is the event that we regard and celebrate, not the day. For by the event of the resurrection, the Scriptures do not teach that the day itself was sanctified. This has been done solely by the tradition of men. However, the Scriptures do tell us that the seventh day itself is to be celebrated and honored by express commandment of God. For the day itself was ordained, sanctified, and blessed by God at the foundation of the world in commemoration of His creative work and authorship. This is the truth according to the Scriptures.